Hey, I'm Mike from Retro Boost, and I wanted to thank everyone for hitting 100 subscribers. That is such a huge milestone for the channel to hit, and I am deeply appreciative of everyone who's watched and everyone who has subscribed. So I got a little bit of a special video here to celebrate getting 100 subscribers. I wanted to do something a little more personal to me, so I'm going to share what I think are my favorite games. It is a gaming channel, mostly. After all, we got smart home content and gaming tech is starting to boom up now, but at the core of it, it's a gaming channel. So I wanted to communicate my top 13 favorite games ever. This was a monumental project for me to work on. This was actually supposed to be for celebrating 50 subscribers. I started making this video around the 35 subscriber mark to be prepped for it, but the channel's grown so much in the past couple months that we exceeded 50 and then some by the time that I was not anywhere near done. So hey, 100 subscribers. So thank you for 50, thank you for 100. I really do appreciate it. Let's get into the video. I will say two quick things. Number one, these are my opinions, obviously, so if these are games that you don't like, that's totally fine. I'd be very interested in hearing games that you all like. Put them in the comments. It'll be a great way for me to see some games I may not have given a chance before or never even heard about. A chance for me to find new things. Secondly, I do want to give an overall spoiler warning. I'm not going to show the ending to every game that I talk about, obviously, but just a general spoiler warning, because I'm going to give every game its chance at the spotlight, so explaining its mechanics and what I like about it. So little tiny things might be given away here and there, but anything that I consider to be a major spoiler, I will give an actual warning for before it happens. So let's get into it with number 13. And again, thank you for subscribing and supporting the channel. Starting off this list is a first-person shooter. First-person shooters, I really started to lose interest in this genre. I felt like it was getting really stale and oversaturated going after about 2010, but the first Titanfall really brought me back into the genre. The first Titanfall was a ton of fun, although it was multiplayer only. I'm not a huge multiplayer guy, and for $60, it didn't have a ton of content that it came at us to offer. And that's where Titanfall 2 definitely rights that wrong. Because now there's a full-on campaign, there's a great and new expanded multiplayer component. It is the complete package, and it is a ton of fun. Titanfall 2 is a very fast-paced first-person shooter with a great mixture of fun, energetic parkour shooting gameplay with infantry and Titan gameplay. Titans are giant mechs that you can summon. You can earn them in multiplayer matches, or in the campaign you play as a newly field-promoted pilot who's tasked with picking up where his fallen comrades left off. The story itself is nothing terribly original. It just kind of boils down to evil corporation versus plucky rebels, but it's the gameplay that sells this experience so well. Let's start with pilots. What are pilots? Pilots are like super soldiers equipped with specialized jump jet packs around their waists that help them run on walls, do double jumps in the air, and survive falls from just about any height. The fast-paced and buttery smooth parkour that you can pull off with gunplay is what makes Titanfall 2 such a great experience, but infantry is only half the story. The other half of it are controlling Titans, large mechs that pilots can command either remotely or by jumping inside for manual control. The Titan aspect of the experience is significantly bolstered in Titanfall 2 because of the presence of a real campaign. And the campaign itself is actually why this is on my list. I'm not much of a multiplayer guy, although I have put a significant amount of time into Titanfall and Titanfall 2's multiplayer. My love for Titanfall 2 is entirely based off of how much I love the campaign and the story. It's pretty rare to see campaigns nowadays that are as well put together as this one is. The campaign takes full advantage of Titanfall's fast-paced and flexible gameplay with all kinds of awesomely put-together parkour sections and brilliant showdowns in the form of boss fights with the Titans. That's what makes Titanfall so great. It makes the pilot gameplay and the Titan gameplay equally awesome in their own respective ways. Controlling the Titans is a very different experience than controlling the pilot. You feel heavier, you're not as agile, you got big, beefy, powerful weapons, special maneuvers, and even ultra abilities that you can fire off every now and then. There's also multiple loadouts too, so there's a lot of variety in how you can play as a Titan. Different primary weapons, different secondary abilities, different ultimates, etc. At the center of all this is BT. BT is the best part of this game for me. He is the Titan that your character is partnered with throughout the story mode. BT is like your robot best friend. He's a artificially intelligent, fully sentient Titan that you go through the story mode with. And he's a legit character. Plenty of great lines, great character moments, all kinds of cool things you do with him. He becomes a genuinely likable presence to this game's story that without, I don't think it would have been anywhere near as good.
Got you.
For anyone that's a fan of the first-person shooter genre, I really can't recommend this enough. Again, because I love it for its campaign. The multiplayer, though, is a whole nother experience that I'm sure any competitive first-person shooter fanatics would definitely enjoy getting into, because the multiplayer experience is highly competitive. The Titans versus Titan gameplay is very strategic, because compared to the first game, Titans go down faster, so it's a very different experience, and it's still a lot of fun. For me, though, the story mode is actually what puts this game where it is. I honestly just think this is one of the best first-person shooters I've ever gotten the chance to play. It's very, very great. I can't recommend it enough. So go ahead and check it out and embark into your own Titan adventure. That's right, it's Mario, but Paper Mario. Who would have thought that you could make such a fun and engaging RPG experience from Mario? Nintendo actually has two different well-known Mario RPG series. The Paper Mario lineage, which is like a spiritual successor to Super Mario RPG for the SNES, and then the Mario and Luigi games, which were on like Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS. Paper Mario, at least the first couple of them, were pretty traditional turn-based RPGs. Turn-based meaning you enter into a battle with an enemy on the overworld, you go to this new battle environment, and you go back and forth attacking each other until either yourself or the opponent's HP hits 0. Turn-based games can be a hit or miss with some people. The thing I like about Paper Mario is a little modifier that it throws into the usual formula with action commands. When an opponent attacks you, if you hit the guard button at the right moment, you'll reduce incoming damage. Just the same, if you hit the same attack button at the right moment when you're attacking, you can modify your attack, either attacking multiple times or doing more damage. You can even outright deflect damage entirely if you have the reflexes enough to do it. I can't really pull this technique off reliably, it's called a super guard. The best part about action commands is that they're not always just pressing a button at the right time. Sometimes you're furiously wiggling the stick, or alternating the shoulder buttons, or holding the stick in a particular way. You eventually learn what to expect from certain moves and get used to them, but it's cool that they're not all just the exact same method of hitting the A button at the right time. It keeps you on your toes for the earlier parts of the game. Regardless, these action commands are what makes the experience so much fun. It's just a nice little twist on the usual expected formula. The game's story sees Mario coming into possession of a mystical treasure map and is following it to gather objects called crystal stars. As he seeks them out, the overall objective is to find Princess Peach, who's been kidnapped by these characters called the X-Nauts, who are also looking for the crystal stars. Bowser's also thrown into the mix too. He is really mad that, he missed his chance to kidnap the princess. So you got like 3 factions, Mario, the X-Nauts, Bowser, all on this collision course with the crystal stars in the middle. And it works very well. The story is a lot of fun. You meet a lot of interesting characters along the way. Mario meets and recruits new partners that can take into battle. Each one kind of has their own little side story that happens like as you meet them and you get to know them a little better. The different partners that you find also have different abilities that come into play for puzzle solving or interacting with the overworld. Plus, they also have unique dialogue too. So, you can play the game like 7 times over with different partners kind of maining in the overworld and get different dialogue. In addition to the action commands, another new element is the audience, the way that the battles actually play out. When you run into an enemy and you go into the battle screen, instead of it being just like an area that vaguely represents the area that you're in, it turns into a stage with like prop backgrounds and wallpapers and even an audience. It's like such a weird little fourth wall breaking way to play out battles, but it's a very cute aesthetic and I really like it. And the higher you level up, the bigger the audience and the more fanciful the stage gets. And the audience has a good degree of interaction with you as well. They cheer you on, refilling up your star power to use your special moves with. They can boo and throw things at you if you aren't performing very well. They are even subject to attack by boss characters or even fellow audience members too. It's a very interactive part of the battling experience. The whole stage play aesthetic, I think, is just really clever and like really well done, and it suits the paper art style really, really well to see these characters interacting this way. It's a game that has a lot of heart. That's the best way I can put it. It's colorful, it's got genuinely really funny dialogue, fourth wall type jokes, just really funny joke situations, character interactions, and dialogue. The whole thing has such a great mood to it. It's just such a great experience to like sit and mess around with. It just puts you in a good mood. The music's great. The world is great. Building such a large RPG out of the Mario universe and finding different roles for these different characters. It's just crazy to see how the world has been built out since that original Donkey Kong arcade game that started this all. Ratchet and Clank, Kraken Time was the last major game of the PlayStation 3 saga of Ratchet and Clank. Although there were a couple more games afterward, this is like the last, what I would describe as like big budget, highly story-driven experience. The rest were smaller games by comparison, or at least very different. They were more like spin-offs. Still good, but not like this. The Ratchet and Clank games are usually third-person shooting, sort of kind of platforming games, where you navigate levels, taking down enemies with ridiculously over-the-top and largely comedic weapons, like a giant shotgun that's a alien that belches shockwaves so powerful that it destroys robots. Crazy, silly stuff like that. For as much humor as there is, and there's a lot of humor, the Ratchet and Clank games are all, like, seriously funny. It's the characters behind the humor that makes it work so well. The characters of the Ratchet and Clank franchise are very, very likable, very endearing. It's super easy to love them all, even the villains. And that's the main thing about A Kraken Time that makes it my favorite out of all of them, is because it's the return of Dr. Nefarious, a ridiculously over-the-top robotic villain who first appeared in Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal for PS2, and he's brought back and gets the spotlight once again in A Kraken Time. Perfect way to close out the primary trilogy on PlayStation 3 to bring back this guy. He's just too much fun. Of course, villains are one thing, but what about the heroes? Well, you got Ratchet and Clank. best friends for life. Although the plot of this game has Clank separated from Ratchet as he tries to figure out where his friend is. And along the way, Ratchet finds out that he might not be the last Lombax left around in the universe after all, meeting a mysterious character named Alistair, who used to know Ratchet's father. So we get more story about Ratchet's origins, which they're expanding on after what happened in Tools of Destruction. We also get to see Clank grow as a character on his own, and the friendship between the two of them is really put to the test in a lot of this game, and it's very, very well done. There are some, like, tear-jerking moments in it, to be honest. It's just so awesome. You'll be in tears from laughter and also from, like, genuinely heartfelt moments. The gameplay is as big as the story is, too. It's a real full experience. You have, like, linear levels that you go through, but there's also, like, a kind of open world aspect to it, where you can freely roam large space environments, land on planets to do sort of side quest type activities. You can return to certain locations. It's really engaging and, like, super deep for what you'd think this game would be at surface level. That's what I like about it so much. It's just very, very complete. It is a complete experience. A fantastic example of how to do a third-person action game. It's just all the best things about the genre that I love and respect. It's got great characters, awesomely executed story, great character development, a great way to expand their backstories in the world. It's got pretty good music too, great color, awesome humor, and fantastic voice acting. These characters are so lifelike and so just genuinely well done and awesome. Ratchet & Clank is a fantastic franchise. After this, like I mentioned before, it became mostly smaller spin-offs, so I am glad to see that we're getting a new core Ratchet & Clank game on PlayStation 5. Hopefully it'll be along the same caliber that a Kraken Time is, because damn, these games are good.
Track them down and annihilate them!
Very good, sir. In the meantime, might I suggest engaging the safety so as not to kill any more troops?
It's not even loaded, you moron! Look! Next!
Cole? Get up, man!
Beast.
Infamous 2, a open-world action superhero game. But what superhero? Well, an original created one. This is kind of like Darkman in the sense that they couldn't make a game based off of a known property, so they made their own. And it's done very, very well. Infamous tells the story of Cole McGrath, a normal, everyday bike courier who is the subject of a violent explosion that gives him electric-based superpowers. Not just him, but other people in the world as well. They're called conduits, people that have these powers. Cole is pretty much the most powerful out of all of them, and he is told that one day in the future another powerful entity will appear called the Beast that he must fight and be victorious against, only he fails. After failing, Cole McGrath retreats and seeks to increase his power for when the next time comes that the Beast will show up, he can hopefully win, and that's where the game begins. Rather than create all kinds of customized gameplay elements like making it a stealth game or making it a flying game, they decide to treat the superpowers like a shooter experience. So the game actually controls like a third-person shooter, and, you know, it works really well. Like, it's genuinely fun to blast your powers around. Cole's different powers are kind of representative of standard first-person shooter tropes, like normal shots, grenades, rockets, stuff like that, all have like equivalents that he has access to, but they're very, very stylized, so it doesn't like feel like it's just a cheaper version of those things in the form of a superhero game. Like, it still feels like it's powers he's utilizing. In addition to the shooting mechanics, the game also has light parkour. I say light because it isn't like you're free-flowing and bounding over obstacles in a seamless flow. It's more like climbing. You can climb buildings, you can climb lampposts, you can grind on rails, stuff like that, and you can even shoot and use your powers while hanging or climbing on buildings. I would describe it as like sticky parkour, just because you are attracted to objects to grab onto as you move around. It works pretty well. Sometimes you do get like stuck on things that you're not intending to climb on, so it isn't perfect, but I like how it feels. It feels right for how you control Cole McGrath around the world. Like, it isn't like they took, say, Assassin's Creed and just like gave it third-person shooter controls. Like, it feels like it's well done for what Cole's powers are and how he would move around the environment. Infamous 2 widens up the powers that Cole has access to. As you progress through the story, you get to choose to get injected with either new ice powers or new fire powers. And that's kind of the whole motif of the Infamous franchise. It has this, like, decision-making, good versus evil stuff. You have big story moments where you get to choose between doing heroic or evil actions. The thing that's interesting about Infamous 2, though, is it isn't strictly always these choices that are determining what's happening. The game actually tracks things like injuring civilians or needlessly, brutally rather, finishing off enemies. Stuff like that all contributes to your heroism or your notoriety, which in turn will give you access to higher tiers of either the ice powers or the fire powers, depending on which alignment you choose. And that's something that gives the game's story a high degree of replay value. By default, you can play it twice and experience two very different things. Good with ice powers and all the good choices you make, or evil with these crazy fire evil powers and all the evil choices that you make. It's a bonus because you're not only experiencing the story in two different ways, but even just the general gameplay itself is different because of how the fire powers are versus the ice powers. Coming back around to the story, that's one of the main reasons I like this game, is because Cole McGrath and his adventure, plus his relationship with some of these characters, especially his best friend Zeke, is told very, very well. It's a great story, they're great characters, they're very real, they're very likable, and it makes the experience, it just really elevates it to that next tier that propels this into being one of my favorite games ever. Infamous 2 is a great original superhero game and story with a creative gameplay element of just taking a superhero game and basically turning it into a third-person shooter while still making it feel like you're playing as a superhero. It's just a very well-done experience, a very well-done game. Sucker Punch really outdid themselves with this one. If you're a fan of open-world games, action games, or superhero games, or, hey, all three, definitely check it out.
I don't know if you've ever let someone down, got your ass kicked, or straight up failed. But those are the moments that define us. They push you further than you've ever thought possible and force you to make choices. No matter what the cost.
The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I'm a late bloomer when it comes to Zelda games. I didn't play any of them until I was a teenager. The first one that I played was Ocarina of Time for the GameCube, that Master Quest remake, and I really, really liked it. So I sought out the most current Zelda at the time to play next, which was Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess is one of very few Zelda games that I've gotten to play in its release window when it was relevant. So a big reason that this is here is because it's a fantastic game, but it's also one that's very nostalgic to me personally. Out of all the 3D Zeldas I've played, which is most of them, I would say that Twilight Princess thus far has been my favorite. Twilight Princess tells the story of the Twilight, a alternate dimension that's having pockets of it appear in Hyrule, turning its citizens into spirits and allowing these shadow beasts to run amok. Naturally, you play as Link, as he becomes the hero of time to vanquish the Twilight, restore Hyrule, and save all of his friends. Link's not alone on this journey. He's joined by Midna, a mysterious character with her own agenda and relationship with the bad guy, Zant, who is a pretty intimidating dude in a lot of the cutscenes he's in, if I'm going to be honest. Some of the new things the Twilight Princess introduces is the concept of Link having a beast form. When he goes into the Twilight, he's transformed into a wolf. You spend a lot of the game doing these wolf levels and using wolf abilities like sniffing and digging and different way of doing combat, and eventually you unlock the ability to transform into a wolf at will. So dungeons will require you to both be doing things as a human and as a wolf. Speaking of dungeons, this game has largely my favorite dungeons out of the whole franchise. There really aren't any in this game that I can think of that I don't like. I think they have good puzzles. The items you get and the way that you use them is very, very fun. Some of the items are just totally bonkers, like this spinner thing you use to go on these like roller coaster tracks in the walls and jump all over the place. You get like a giant heavy ball and chain. Like it's pretty fun. I like this. The only thing I can say I don't like about Twilight Princess compared to most other Zelda games are the boss fights. Too many of the boss fights in this game are just really, really simple and easy and are over too fast. There are a couple of really great standout ones. I really, really like the one that involves the use of the item, the spinner. That boss fight's a lot of fun, fast-paced insanity, but most of them are over pretty quick. Even with that said, Twilight Princess is still my favorite 3D Zelda game. I really, really like this game. I like its combat, I like the story, I like the way that Hyrule is portrayed. I like the wolf mechanics too. They make it feel like it's got its own fresh take on the usual Zelda formula that you come to expect. It's a great experience. Let's leave this one by celebrating a classic moment that every Zelda game pretty much has in it. But spoiler warning, just in case you haven't played it, if you want to see this moment for yourself for the first time, because I'm going to give you this warning now, go ahead and skip to this timestamp for the next game.
For you at the castle on the night of the Star Festival. There's something I'd like to give you. From Peach.
Super Mario Galaxy. The 3D Mario game was always going to be on this list. It was just a matter of which one, and I had to whittle it down. Ultimately, I went with Super Mario Galaxy the first. Galaxy 2 is really good, but the first one is the one that had the biggest impact on me. Other than Mario 64, which I pretty much grew up playing, so that's the most nostalgic, but I think that Galaxy is the objectively best experience. Super Mario Galaxy really takes the concept of 3D platforming to the next level, because now we have gravity-based gameplay. And hot damn, does it create one of the greatest platforming games ever made, which is further enhanced by its absolutely stellar soundtrack. It's a fully orchestrated experience, and it was so good that they even released it on CD separately when the game came out. I used to have it, I lost it since, which really bums me out. The story sees Bowser interrupt a festival that's being celebrated in the Mushroom Kingdom. He claims he's going to be making a whole new galaxy and kidnaps Peach to go along with him. Mario attempts to save the day, but is blasted out into space. In order to save Peach, Mario needs the help of Rosalina, who's had her Comet Observatory's power drained by Bowser and his minions. Rosalina gives Mario a partner, Luma, who gives him the power to use a new move, this spin attack. This becomes not just an attack, but also a way of interacting with the environment to solve puzzles, manipulate mechanisms, etc. It's a huge core mechanic of the game, and also a ton of fun to pull off. That also makes the platforming aspect super fun because it's a way of extending your jumps. It's effectively a double jump, so the acrobatics in this game are off the chain. As you then progress through the levels, it's kind of like Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine. You have multiple levels to choose from, each level has multiple objectives, and you tackle them all one by one. And this is where Mario Galaxy really shines. These levels are just fantastic. The gravity-based, nutty, upside-down, right-side-up gameplay works so well, especially to that rockin' soundtrack. It's also got some really good boss fights in it too, but the Bowser ones are my absolute favorite. These Bowser battles, and just Bowser's role in general, is one of the things I like most about this game. He is bigger and badder than ever, and the fights that you have with him are extremely cinematic and like overly epic, considering that this is just Super Mario Bros. Like, it's pretty nuts. Galaxy also brings back some classic Mario power-ups and also creates some new ones. The Fire Flower returns, allowing you to throw fireballs just like the good old days, only power-ups now are on a timer, so you gotta figure out the best way to use them to solve puzzles to get to the level. The Ice Flower lets you freeze water as you run across its surface. You can skate on it, you can freeze these like hoses to create platforms for yourself as you jump up. You can even turn into a Boo and become transparent and go through certain surfaces. My favorite of which is the Rainbow Star. It turns Mario into an invincible rainbow-powered wrecking ball. You can even turn into a bee. Galaxy also offers the right kind of difficulty. It's accessible enough that anyone could probably get into it and beat it, getting 60 stars to achieve the ending, no problem. But for the challenge professionals, those who want the challenge and are expert platforming aficionados, Galaxy really turns up the heat in its back half. Some of these levels are crazy challenging, and there's even a thing called comets, which augment levels, so you could have situations where you have to navigate with enemies that can kill you in one hit, moving much faster than normal, or do daredevil runs against bosses where you only have 1 HP. It's all really cool. It gets really challenging, so for anyone thinking that this is some kind of casual experience, Mario's easy peasy. When you get to the back half of this game, you may be surprised. For any Nintendo fan, this is definitely a must-play. I mean, this is one of the greatest platformers, if not the greatest platformers ever made. It's extremely creative. It has one of the most consistently awesome soundtracks I think I've ever experienced, where just countless songs I can hum in my head. They get caught in my head. I don't like think, oh, I hate this one when it starts playing. It's such a great experience overall, beginning to end. If you can manage to either find it on Wii, check it out. If you're lucky enough to get your hands on the 3D All-Stars collection for Switch, you'll have a good time there too. Graphically speaking, it looks better than ever in that collection, although the controls are a little clunky because it definitely was meant for the Wii remotes as opposed to the Switch remote, the Switch way of doing the pointer, I mean. But still really, really fun, so definitely check it out if you haven't already. Star Fox 64, hands down one of the best action games ever made. Haven't played it yet? Play it. I'm telling you right now to go play this game. Like, seriously. Star Fox 64 tells the story of the Star Fox team, aptly named, led by Fox McCloud, who is contracted by the Cornerian military to take on Andross, a evil scientist warlord monkey man who's trying to conquer the Lilat system. You'll go stage to stage, getting to choose your path as you go. The paths can branch by either completing certain objectives, or beating the level in a certain way, defeating an optional boss, stuff like that. You can change your path. It essentially breaks down to an easy path, a medium couple of levels, and then a hard path. The gameplay sees you taking control of one of 3 vehicles: the classic R-Wing, a space fighter ship, or the Landmaster tank, and in one level, the Blue Marine, a submarine. You spend most of the game with the R-Wing, though. You'll move straight through levels, avoiding obstacles, shooting down enemies. Sometimes the game will open up and allow you to free fly in these open arena, all range mode sequences. This whole game is just an adrenaline-infused fever dream of action fun. You're gonna burn your thumbs off tapping the A button fast because you just can't shoot fast enough. One of the most well-known aspects of Star Fox 64 is the voice acting. It's got consistent voice acting through it. Fox and his teammates are constantly chattering with each other throughout each level. You have Peppy, the wise old mentor who's always giving you tips and advice. Falco, who is a jerk who insults and berates you despite the fact that he needs your help fairly constantly.
Use the boost to take. I guess I should be thankful.
And finally Slippy, who reveals the boss's health bars and also always needs your help pretty consistently.
Slippy!
The running theme here being that you need to help your teammates out. Throughout levels, they'll have enemies go after them, or in the free roam areas too, and you have to get enemies off their tails, otherwise they'll take gradual damage. If they take enough damage, they'll be forced to leave, and they'll be absent from the following mission. Your teammates aren't the only ones that chatter, though. Boss characters also talk to you fairly frequently, taunting you or reacting to taking damage.
I can't believe I lost to this scum!
Sorry to jet, but I'm in a hurry.
Plus you have the infamous Starwolf team, which you can fight a total of 2 times throughout the game. One fight occurs on the easy path, and the second fight occurs at the end of the hard path. The fights with Starwolf are some of the highlights of the game, because these are where it becomes like a true ship-to-ship dogfighting experience as you seek to outmaneuver your opponents, get behind them, and take them down. Not to detract away from the other boss fights, though. Every stage ends in some kind of climactic boss encounter, and Star Fox 64 has a number of very memorable and fun ones, whether it be against giant robots.
I'm going to crush you! My Emperor! I failed you!
Trains.
Take care of the guy behind me, Fox! Your father helped me like that, too! No! Get away! Whoa!
Lava monsters. Gundam things. Monkey Gundams.
No party just yet. It's time to try our new weapon.
As you get better and better at the game, the challenge becomes trying to get the medal for each level that you go at. Every level has a hit value, like number of enemies downed, that you have to get if you want to get the medal. Unlocking all the medals unlocks expert mode, which is something that I've been working toward for like my entire life. I've got most of the medals for most stages, but man, like to get them, you gotta be just going bananas, shooting everything in your path, trying to maximize combos or taking out multiple enemies at once. That's where the game's fun truly is. You get into it. This is a game that's gonna make you sweat when you play it. And that's why this game is so good to me. It never gets old. It's such a ceaseless thrill ride. It's just so much fun that every Star Fox game that came out afterward, if you were to play back-to-back with this one, feels like just the worst game you ever played in your life. When you get into it and you start to increase your skill and you're doing flips and rolls and deflecting enemy fire and weaving between buildings like a pro, taking down enemies like you're the master, man, it is just the greatest feeling you'll ever have playing an action game like this. I've been playing Star Fox 64 a couple times a year for the past 20 years, and it is yet to get old. One day soon, maybe I'll get expert mode unlocked. I recently got 120 stars for the first time on my own in Mario 64, so maybe the next major obstacle is getting expert mode in Star Fox. Who knows?
I see him up ahead. Let's rock and roll!
Mass Effect 2, a story-driven action sci-fi RPG experience brought to us courtesy by BioWare. Mass Effect basically has two sections of its gameplay: action cover-based third-person shooting, and story-driven interactions with characters with extensive dialogue. The action portions play out very strategically. It's not just about gunplay after all. You have a lot of options at your disposal depending on which class you choose. But it's not just about what you choose. You're also controlling two AI squad mates with every shooting mission you go on, commanding them to take certain positions or focus on targets, and telling them what moves to use. And that's where it all comes together, balancing your abilities with your teammates to craft the perfect team, strip down and outmaneuver enemies with certain abilities, find ways around their defenses, and turn the situation into your favor. Mass Effect, the whole trilogy really, has beautifully strategic and very fun combat. Mass Effect 2, compared to its predecessor, is a lot more streamlined, definitely more action-oriented. I do miss the broader scale RPG elements that Mass Effect the first has, but the reason I like 2 better is the story. The story itself is very well told, but it's the characters that really sell the experience. The stellar voice acting also helps. You get to build your own character out. You can be male Shepard, voiced by Mark Meer, or female Shepard, voiced by Jennifer Hale. Both do a good job. I've played both. Between the two, Mark Meer's Shepard is a little more my favorite, although I've done full 1 to Mass Effect 3 playthroughs with both types. They're both worth experiencing. The side characters and supporting cast are also excellent. You got voice talent like Keith David voicing Captain Anderson, Seth Green voices the ship's pilot, he does a really good job, Martin Sheen voices the elusive man, he's also one of my favorites. Excellent stuff. The way that the story proceeds is also what makes Mass Effect interesting. You get to choose your responses through dialogue, whether it be Paragon, which is generally regarded as good guy, or Renegade, which is bad guy, although it isn't strict black and white morality. Generally speaking, being Paragon means you're an inspiring leader who seeks to help others, and being Renegade is more self-serving, get the job done at any cost. The game actually tracks your Paragon and Renegade actions separately, meaning a good action doesn't undo a bad one, and vice versa. The cool thing about that means that you don't have to completely commit to one or the other. You can be a mostly Paragon Shepard, but occasionally do some Renegade actions to spice things up, and you won't damage your Paragon experience. Being Paragon generally means that you're standing up for people, helping out, healing people that are injured, standing up for someone who's being bullied or unfairly prejudiced against.
You forgot your credit chit at Seronis Applications. The clerk is holding it for you.
Oh. Well, the Quarian could have stolen it.
I'll close this event report, but I'll be watching you. Get a permanent residence, or I'll run you in for vagrants.
Are you two serious?
What?
You falsely accused this girl of stealing from you. All you have to say now is that she could have stolen it?
Now, just a minute.
And you? She gets harassed and insulted by this guy, and you throw in a threat to arrest her for vagrancy?
Being Renegade in some cutscenes is kind of like being an action star. You take these bold, brazen maneuvers to make a fight easier for yourself and turn the tables on the bad guys before the battle even begins.
When I say the word, we unleash hell on your squad. So I suggest you walk away nicely, unless you want...
The game is also just packed full of content. The main story itself, every one of your crew members, your primary squad, they have their own loyalty missions, plus there's more to find in the world, and there's also DLC content. I mean, you're talking like a 30-something hour game minimum. Plus you add to the fact that you can play through it Paragon, Renegade, you can do male or female Shepard with Jennifer Hale or Mark Meer. There's even different options to romance certain crew members, so there's so many different ways that you can experience this game. At minimum it's 2, but potentially there's more, even factoring in the classes you can play as well. Play the game as different classes, experience different play types, different powers and abilities, different teams set up with your squad mates. There's so much content here. The Mass Effect trilogy in general is a landmark RPG franchise. 2 will always be my favorite, although it's not to say that it's far above the other 2 games. I really enjoy all 3 of them. 2's just the one that if I had to pick, I'd say it's my definitive favorite. I really recommend all of them, though, with that said. Especially now that the legendary re-release is happening, coming up soon here. It's a chance for a new generation, potentially, to pick up this game, or for people like me that are nostalgic for it a little bit, to play it again with newly enhanced specifications. Definitely give it a try. If you like science fiction, you like action, you like story-driven games, it's definitely worth your time. Check it out. The best way to fight evil is to make your own monster. Enter the Witcher. Witchers are professional monster slayers, mutants with significantly enhanced senses and special knowledge of all things supernatural. Based off of the novel series, the Witcher games follow Geralt, the character you experience the game as. The Witcher 3 does an especially great job of not just telling a great story or having interesting gameplay, it truly puts you in the role of being a Witcher. Witcher 3 is a massive open-world game. The world is rich with all manner of activities, the most interesting being the Witcher contracts. As a Witcher, you can take contracts for dealing with people's monster troubles. These quests usually involve investigative work. Most people aren't monster experts. All they know is that there's a terrifying menace. It's causing them problems. It's your job as a Witcher to deduce and learn what this threat is, and prepare yourself to deal with it. You can craft potions, brew oils for your blade, even craft bombs, all specially crafted to be effective against particular monsters. You even have magical abilities at your disposal in the form of signs. All of the different monsters in the game have unique weaknesses to certain potions, certain bombs, certain types of magics, all of which you can figure out and go up against them with the best amount of preparation possible. To prepare and to find quests, and to advance the story, you have to explore the world. You'll explore the world to find and gather herbs, find blueprints to make better gear, locate places of power to increase your skill points. The world is massive. It's a mixture of beautiful and ugly. You'll travel across war-torn countrysides and gorgeous islands and winterscapes. In terms of skills, there are tons of different ways to build Geralt. Do you want to be a physical fighting master, a magic expert, or a potion bomb brew master? You can mix and match, too, to best suit your preferred playstyle. You can even get an item that resets your assigned points, letting you experiment with different playstyles within a single playthrough. I love games that give you these kind of options with RPGs, it's awesome. Regarding the story, it's a grand, giant tale. Geralt is working with his sorceress friend Yennefer to find Ciri, a girl with special powers who grew up under Geralt's tutelage. Ciri is being pursued by the Wild Hunt, terrifying magical riders. Geralt needs to find Ciri before the Wild Hunt does. The story is very long and has many great moments with its memorable characters. In addition to the sizable story, there are also tons of side quests, the aforementioned Witcher contracts, and 2 huge expansions. There is a ridiculous amount of content here. As you play through the game, you'll find that choices are a big part of the experience too. You get to choose responses as you interact with characters, both in stories and in side quests. Don't mistake it though, there's no morality system here like Mass Effect or Infamous. Rather, choices simply have consequences. Situations play out differently based off of what you do or what you say. Not every monster has to be killed, for example. Or, regarding rewards, do you accept a reward from a poor townsman, or refuse the reward so it helps him and his family? These choices are yours. Many of the story events have vastly different outcomes based on your choices. Some are even time-sensitive, forcing you to make a very quick decision that has big ramifications. Witcher 3 is a near-perfect RPG experience. It gives you a gigantic world that is packed full of content. It immerses you in the role of being a Witcher, making you investigate and learn about your target, maintaining your weapons, preparing with special tools and potions. You get the benefit of choice, with unique ways of advancing conversations, ending quests, and experience events differently as you play through the game multiple times. It also has New Game Plus as well, so if you really enjoy it, you can keep on going with new level caps and crafting higher level gear. It all comes together to form a truly amazing AAA experience.
They say witches steal young'uns.
That true? What the Emperor promise you, freaks? Your own land? Like he did the elves once?
Get out, all of you.
We ain't going nowhere. And neither are you.
They won't back down now.
I can see that.
Planet Aether is in peril. A large squadron of Federation troopers has been lost. A race of evil creatures from a dark parallel dimension are about to find a way to breach into ours. This is a job for Samus Aran. Metroid Prime 2 has the daunting task of being a sequel to what is considered, among a lot of people, to be one of the greatest 2D to 3D adaptations in gaming history with the first Metroid Prime. Between the two, I actually like the first Prime game a little more in terms of its gameplay and the world, the feeling of isolation as you explore, but I like Prime 2 more for its story and the introduction of its villain. Prime 2 is far darker, both figuratively and very literally, than its predecessors. Traveling through a destroyed and deserted Federation outpost, the game has an eerie and suspenseful feeling to it, like a horror game. Then the dead rise and attack. Now it is a horror game. What's causing this? It's the Ing, terrifying creatures capable of shape-shifting and possessing other creatures, even machines. The Ing exist in a dark, poisonous alternate dimension, and they want to cross over. Samus's mission is to head into the dark world and steal its planetary energy back to the light world to destabilize it. Along the way, she'll encounter massive bosses, fight Ing-possessed versions of familiar enemies, but the Ing are not the only threat. Another hunter is present. If you completed Metroid Prime and got 100%, you'll have seen the foreshadowing to this character. Despite the simplistic name, Dark Samus is not simply a doppelganger of our heroine. Dark Samus is actually an absolute monster. It is amazing how a game with no dialogue can frame the evil behind the mask of Dark Samus. Just as Samus is exploring the world and collecting power-ups to grow more powerful, so is Dark Samus, constantly hunting for sources of the powerful radioactive substance known as Phazon. And multiple times, the two hunters collide. The boss fights against Dark Samus are some of the most fun and interesting in the entire franchise for me. Dark Samus has many unique abilities, but also Phazon-charged versions of many of Samus's most recognizable moves, such as missiles, the boost ball, and even this crazy body slam version of what could be considered the screw attack. It is worth noting that Prime 2 isn't the first Metroid game to have the idea of an evil Samus. Metroid Fusion had the SA-X, but the relationship is very different. In Fusion, the SA-X was a more powerful version of yourself. It was a hunter and you were the prey. You had to always run away from it, up until the very end where you were finally strong enough to challenge it. Dark Samus, right from the beginning, is more like a formidable rival, someone to contest your power against. You're almost always on equal footing, and you come to blows whenever you encounter each other. A challenge of strength. As you travel the world, it's worth noting that there are actually two worlds. You have to travel between the light world and the dark world of the Ing very frequently. The dark world is toxic. Exposure to its atmosphere drains Samus's health very quickly. Many puzzles are solved by manipulating things between both worlds. Bosses and expansions are broken up between both. As you explore, you'll travel through deserts, swamps, underwater temples, tech fortresses in the cliffs, and all of their dark world equivalents. Prime 2 brings a lot of the expected staple abilities of the franchise back from previous game, but also adds new ones. The ability to spread out 5 missiles at once with the Seeker missile, the ability to have sound vision via sonar with the Echo visor. The new beam weapons are all about scorching light energy and noxious oozing dark energy, and for the first time in 3D, the screw attack finally makes its debut. My favorite is the dark burst. You, like, fire a black hole at enemies. It's awesome. Metroid Prime 2 stands apart from the rest of the franchise due to its darker tone and higher than average difficulty. Some people are turned away by both of those things, but not me. I love the challenge. I love that it's a much more hardcore and difficult Metroid experience. This is an amazing first-person adventure. You get to explore not one world, but 2. Although the Dark World is not exactly a beautiful vacation place to go to. You also get to play around with some of the most unique assortment of power-ups Samus has ever gotten to use in one game, not to mention facing down with Dark Samus. I love all of the Metroid franchise, and I love the Metroid Prime trilogy, but out of them all, this is the one that I played the most and always get excited about whenever I pop it in. It's an awesome game. Definitely check it out.
So, this is the child who will save the world.
How far would you go to save someone you love? All the way to a whole nother world? That's the journey that Oliver takes to save his mother. In Ni no Kuni, people's souls are shared across parallel worlds. Something that happens in one world affects the other person in the parallel world. When tragedy strikes, Oliver is given a chance to journey to the other world with the help of a fairy named Drippy to find his mother's doppelganger and save her, hoping to save his mother back in his own world. On his journey, Oliver's going to have to learn the finer points of magic, all to become a powerful wizard so he can challenge the evil Shadar, who he has to save his mother's doppelganger's soul from. Using the magic he learns, Oliver starts to help people in the other world. Many people have had their souls broken. They become broken-hearted, as they call it, by Shadar's evil magics. Oliver has to help people all across the world he meets, and as he does, gains friends and allies. Ni no Kuni's art style is in the vein of a Studio Ghibli film, and even includes a number of actual animated sequences by Studio Ghibli themselves. This gives the game a wonderfully charming and timeless look. No matter what console you play this game on, PlayStation 3, PS4, PC, or Switch, it always looks vibrant and fun, with an absolutely epic score to follow. Ni no Kuni plays like an action-adventure RPG, with an overworld, battles, and exploration segments. Battles play out like a hybrid of turn-based and real-time. The battle itself plays out in real-time, but you can select move that has cooldowns, charge-up times, you can do like a kind of tactical pause and assess the situation. In terms of who's actually doing the battling, at first it's just Oliver himself. As the game progresses, Oliver learns more and more about the magic and the world and becomes a formidable spellcaster. You'll learn to battle with familiars not very long into the game. Familiars are warriors that are drawn from your own soul, with unique types, attack styles, movement speeds, and special moves. You can even catch wild familiars and add them to your team later in the game. It all kind of feels like Pokemon Ghibli edition. It starts with just Oliver and a magic wand, eventually turns into a full party of 3 people plus their own familiars, 3 each, that you take into battle with you. So as the game gets further and you get more and more party members, it becomes drastically more strategic. Building a team is very fun and strategic. Managing your party is very important in battle, because Ni no Kuni is quite difficult. There are more than a handful of moments where it seems that the difficulty really spikes. You gotta make sure that you're leveled up enough adequately to take on certain parts of the story. Good news being that you can balance out the grinding time by testing out different familiars, forming your strategies, and building your team. The story is great. The characters are all memorable. They're all very likable. Oliver's a great kid. You meet a lot of colorful and interesting characters. There's a lot of heartfelt moments. Those are the parts of it that make it really feel like a Studio Ghibli product. Ni no Kuni is a beautiful game. It looks great, it has an excellent soundtrack, and it packs a ton of content. It's a very big game. Expect to sink a lot of time into it if you give it a shot. Pretty much at minimum, it's like a 40-hour experience, but even more so if you want 100%, experiment more with familiars, do some of the little endgame content things. The only downside that I have is how long it can take before all of the game's regular mechanics are at your disposal. The ability to catch familiars doesn't come into play until a couple hours in, for example. With that being said, being able to build out your team is so much fun. Raising familiars is great. They level up just as the party members do, learning new moves, and even metamorphosizing into new forms. It's just evolution from Pokemon, basically. Ni no Kuni also tells an excellent story, with plenty of great moments, climactic boss encounters, and plenty of heart. War has changed. Thanks to nanomachines, soldiers are closely monitored, have their emotions and pain response augmented, making them more efficient, more deadly, more resilient. What happens, though, when the network that controls these nanomachines is tampered with? This is what happens in Metal Gear Solid 4. Solid Snake is brought back into the world of tactical espionage to stop Liquid Ocelot from completing his plan to control the nanomachine network. Snake is suffering from rapid aging, making this both his most difficult and likely his final mission. MGS4 is a masterpiece example of a stealth action game. It is so deep and gives you so many gameplay possibilities you could almost call it a sandbox stealth game. You can approach situations in a ghost method, sneaking through with no one knowing you were ever there, or you could try a non-lethal touch, using CQC to knock out enemies, or put them to sleep with tranquilizer darts. Perhaps you prefer a more deadly approach, and want to eliminate your enemies one by one like a shadowy assassin. Maybe you don't care about stealth at all, and just want to call it a third-person shooter game. Well hey, you can do all of these things. The game's controls and mechanics support all of those playstyles fully. Aside from the gameplay, MGS4 tells a very cinematic story with tons of cutscenes. There are so many cutscenes, so this is basically a movie with gameplay sequences mixed in. Movie first, game second. If that isn't your thing, you can skip the cutscenes, but obviously you'd be missing critical story details. This is a Kojima production after all. There's a lot of little things that happen in the story. It's very, very detailed. I enjoy the movie aspect of it personally. I'm a big movie guy in general, so the idea of like a movie game hybrid that's done so well like this with fantastic cinematic sequences and also incredibly deep gameplay, I think it's fantastic. Obviously it's an acquired taste. A lot of people just want to get into a game and play it. They don't want to watch it, and that's fine. Obviously you can skip the cutscenes in this game, but you'd be doing it a big disservice, so this game's not for you, and that's okay. Balancing out those story sequences and the stealth gameplay are a mixture of incredible action sequences and boss encounters. Likening the whole thing back to a movie, a bulk of the cutscenes are advancing the story, but these action points are like big crazy action sequences that an audience would come to a superhero film or something like that for. We got chases with military vehicles, running through marketplaces with mechs coming after you, giant bike chase through European streets, and a climactic showdown between Metal Gear Rex and Metal Gear Ray. It's like a kaiju battle. Boss battles are also all very different from each other. Sometimes it's a game of deadly hide and sneak. You got like a sniper battle in the middle of a blizzard, a straight up shooting encounter on the top of a church. They're all so different in their layout and execution. Within the gameplay, the choice is also yours to approach situations lethally or non-lethally. You can go through the entire game without killing a single person, boss counters included. This is the far more difficult approach to the game. I'm still trying to this day to beat Metal Gear Solid 4 on the boss extreme difficulty without killing anyone and without getting any kind of alerts. Perfect stealth. Metal Gear Solid 4 is nearly a perfect game, at least to me. It's got incredibly deep gameplay, incredible replay value thanks to its sandbox elements, tons of unlockables, and the New Game Plus inclusion. Like I said before, I'm still trying to beat it on the hardest difficulty with complete stealth and no kills. I love the Metal Gear franchise. Out of all of them, I consider this one to be my favorite, my best pick. Few other franchises offer such a mixture of detail, immersive gameplay, signature style, and that's also very signature insanity. These games are just too much fun, and I love their cinematic elements. Although it's not as cinematic in terms of like a ton of cutscenes and such, Metal Gear Solid 5 is the next best place to start if you're interested, because since 4 is a PlayStation 3 exclusive, it's a little harder to get your hands on. But 5 offers very similarly deep and rich gameplay in regard to its stealth approach. So if you want to try it out, I definitely recommend starting there. 5 is probably the most accessible out of the whole franchise. I love them all though. In terms of stealth action, I don't think anyone does it quite as good as Metal Gear Solid does.
Don't move. You haven't even taken the safety off, rookie.
Careful, I'm no rookie. I'm a 10-year vet.
How the hell did you ever survive 10 years?
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace. For like 25 minutes. Super Metroid gives us a recap of what's happened in the franchise so far, and then throws you right into the action. Baptism by fire in the form of a boss fight with Ridley. Ridley escapes with the baby Metroid in tow, fleeing to planet Zebes. Samus gives chase. Now, a tone shift. We went from action, explosions, self-destructing to quiet, solitude, isolation. It's just you and the planet. This is Metroid at its finest. An action game with heavy exploration elements. With minimal storytelling, the game instead has you forge your own story through the places you discover and the feats you accomplish as you explore, all without guidance of any kind. It's up to you to find out where you can and can't go, expand your abilities via power-ups and suit upgrades, all so you can explore further. This game puts me into a trance. It's such a great mix of peaceful and chaotic. Quiet areas with atmospheric music are contrasted by hellish environments with powerful enemies and damaging obstacles and booming epic music. It's so easy to just lose yourself in the world of Super Metroid. The process of acquiring upgrades is what pushes you to keep playing. Upgrades are somewhat simple at first, like the staple items, the morph ball, missiles, bombs. Eventually you start to get more exotic items, like the grappling beam, which introduces a whole new dimension of platforming and acrobatics to the franchise, and the speed booster, which turns Samus into a lightning-fast, indestructible force of power. Super Metroid's controls are also perfect. The way that Samus can interact with the environment is what makes the whole thing feel so fun. Being able to shoot in all 8 directions, Mixing that with stylish jumps creates very fun and visually interesting combat gameplay. The ability to leap off of walls creates many opportunities for sequence breaking. And that's where the secret sauce is. Thanks to its flexible controls, even a beginner can tap into crazy skips and exploits, turning Planet Zebes into your playground. Replay value is enhanced tenfold as your skills grow and you seek new speedrunning opportunities. Each new playthrough becomes a new personal challenge. If you didn't already know about them, you can learn wall jumping moves and speed booster techniques from some helpful Zebesian creatures, the only non-hostile creatures in the world, serving as move tutors, teaching you how to break the world around you with these awesome techniques. I can't talk about the Metroid franchise without mentioning the bosses. It's such an integral part of the experience. So many memorable encounters in this game alone. Spoilers to follow from here on out, just a warning, but I gotta go in all the way with this one. Kraken returns from the first game. Now he's 2 screens tall. Giant monster, awesome fight. Phantoon guards the spooky wrecked ship, battle against a ghost basically, and Dragon prowls the depths of Meridia. His fight offers a lot of interesting opportunities. You want to fight him straight up, or do you want to do something interesting with the grappling beam instead? Even speedrunners can utilize the speed booster against him, which is just an insane technique. There are others too, but Ridley reigns above them all. The fight against Ridley is the longest and most brutal out of most of the normal boss fights. It's after fighting Ridley that the story actually picks back up. The capsule that the baby Metroid was in is found, but is now empty. This leads to the game shifting again. We went from an at-your-own-pace exploration experience, now back to a more focused linear action experience as Samus pushes into Turian, the final area of the game. The baby Metroid is finally found, now grown to an enormous size. At first it attacks, but recognizes Samus at the last moment, leaving the screen soon afterward. Now it's time for the final chamber. Here is where Mother Brain is found. At first, it's hectic, but manageable. It's identical to her boss fight in the first Metroid game. This isn't the same challenge that Ridley had you go against. It's far more simplistic. Defeating Mother Brain, you think that you won, but now things take a big turn. Mother Brain rises with a new giant body, and round 2 begins. Now you're starting to run out of ammo, and you resort to regular charge beam shots. It's impossible to tell how much damage, if any, you're really doing. Then it happens. Mother Brain hits Samus with the Hyper Beam, an attack so powerful it pins Samus up against the wall, leaving her drained of stamina after taking hits. Again and again, you're bombarded until you know you can't stand to take another hit. Is this the end of the game? Is it over? As Mother Brain charges one last time, suddenly the baby Metroid swoops in and attacks, latching onto Mother Brain as she fires. The baby absorbs both the power of the Hyper Beam itself and then Mother Brain's own energy, seemingly killing it. The baby begins to heal Samus, but Mother Brain rises again, starts to viciously attack the baby, who continues to protect and heal Samus's power back. The baby finally moves in to strike Mother Brain one more time, but succumbs to its continuing onslaught. As the baby dies, its amassed energy falls onto Samus, giving her the power of the Hyper Beam. Now the tables have turned. Turning the Hyper Beam back on its master, Samus leads a counterattack, every move making Mother Brain reel in pain. Now you know you're getting somewhere. Finally, Mother Brain falls, but it's not over yet. In true Metroid tradition, a self-destruct sequence begins and it's time for a quick escape. Take a small detour, save those innocent critters from earlier, and escape the planet. The last Metroid has been lost. Mother Brain has been destroyed. Maybe the galaxy finally is at peace. The one good thing I'll say about Metroid Other M is it does a pretty great job of recreating that whole sequence in 3D, at least up until the end. The Hyper Beam really isn't shown all that well, but the death of the baby is as tragic and sad as ever, at least to me. Super Metroid is such a marvel to me. It's timeless. I never get tired of any aspect of it. I love the mixture of immersive exploration, cinematic boss battles, plus the final boss fight, and its crazy sequence of events are right out of an action movie. It's amazing. Super Metroid is a true classic. It deserves all the reputation that it has as being one of the greatest games of all time. It's my absolute favorite title. I play through this game at least once a year, and it's not deteriorated one bit to me. Quite the opposite. I appreciate it more and more every time I play it, and I just can't recommend it enough. Whew, that was a long one. I do apologize for the length of the video. If you're still watching, I deeply appreciate you getting this far. I wanted to make sure every game got its moment in the spotlight, because these are my favorite games after all. I had like a list of like 50 plus, and narrowing it down to 10 was like almost impossible. So I decided to do 13, because 13 is kind of a lucky number for me. It's my birthday. So that's why, man, it was tough though. It was really tough. Once again, I want to thank you for watching. Thanks to all those who have subscribed. 100 subscribers is a huge milestone that I take very, very seriously. That's really awesome. The channel is going to continue to grow. More gaming tech, more smart home, more game videos. We got lots of that going on right now with Retro Boost Arcade. I hope to do some live streaming at some point. And at some point when I find a good balance to the workload, I'll be doing more of like the kind of review content. I haven't been doing those lately because I really want them to be special when I do come around to making them. But yeah, so again, thanks for watching. I do deeply appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of your day.